Today we're going over the 10.2 refines and Fireman heroes. Sorry about the delay. For part 1, we're covering Vyland, Muspell, Volke, and Salem. In part 2, we'll talk about Tiny Tana and the remixes from Mythic Nethus plus Legendary Yuri. Our first refine is for Vyland, who's a Demon Axe Cavalier. He's got decent attack and defense with some speed and then very high HP. Vyland's new weapon is the Catalyst Axe. For Vyland and friends within 3 rows or columns, they get +5 stats in combat, red type cooldown effects, and pre-impulses -1 instant cooldown before their first attack. Vyland himself gets 15 flat DR and heals 7 HP after combat. For the refine, Vyland gets Near Trace 4 Conto and another +5 stats in combat. He gets the full low field buff neutralization effect and deals 20 true damage per hit. Generally speaking, Vyland gets +10 stats with the standard true damage and flat DR perks. He gets a sweet Conto ability, low and healing. Catalyst Axe's most interesting perks are the long-range breath type cooldown and pre-impulse effects. That is pretty solid for a demote unit, especially for one without slaying. Cavs have way more cooldown skills nowadays, but still nice to get them in the weapon. For more cooldown synergy, Vyland can use Momentum or Assault Impetus for instant cooldown. Even if you only move one space, Vyland gets -2 instant cooldown, and with breath type cooldown, he can charge the 4 cooldown flame wall in 1 hit. This will prime its 40% damage reduction to tank a hit. You can then add extra flat DR via Excel or Blue Skies, and Momentum provides a free follow-up to unleash Flame Wall next. Now, for a more specific situation, if you move 3 spaces, then Momentum plus Catalyst Axe will trigger Arch Rival immediately if you face a blue foe. If you don't move 3 spaces, then you still get the 40% DR for first attacks, and Vyland can charge Arch Rival in time for a follow-up anyway. Another way to use Arch Rival is with Patience. Vyland gets hit for -2 cooldown. On his counterattack versus blue foes, Arch Rival will get -2 instant cooldown with Catalyst Axe for an activation. The advantage of Patience is that it gives flat DR, but at the cost of always getting hit first. It also gives a 100% potent follow-up if Vyland survives. If you want, you can use Patience with Hardy Bearing when initiating to follow up before the foe can follow up. Now, for other skills, Vyland can get % DR via Haze Slice or Gale Force Mist. He can get a follow-up via Slice Sturdy Blow or Sturdy Flare for Flame Tiles. Clash Force Debuff Neutralization is good with the Refine's full low effect. Vyland's speed's a little awkward, but it can also be in that range where Vyland triggers potent even against decently fast enemies. You could also try to add Frozen into the mix as well. Now for some defensive options, Flowguard Force Scout could mess up a foe who doesn't use no guard. With his decent cooldown perks, Vyland might be able to use the old Gambit B skill for regular % damage reduction. When it comes to supporting, Vyland can use Favor, Detect, Link, or Snag skills. The downside is that these will drop his defensive power a bit, and obviously he doesn't have extra actions without that Micaiah ring. Still, if you want to complement Catalyst Axe's cooldown perks, then Favor is free -1 cooldown each turn, it's pretty great. Now, for other support skills, Vyland can use Shadow Assist skills or Breath of Life 4. Defense Wave 4 would give tempo if you want a defense check, but it's still only on Summer Reed, which is disappointing. Getting tempo for Vyland would be pretty nice in general. All in all, Vyland's not going to be an oppressive unit or anything, but he gets access to fun cooldown effects that can be shared with his team. If you want to proc those higher cooldown specials, then Vyland's in a decent spot despite no slaying. Our next refine is from Muspell, who's a retired old 5-star unit. He's a rare cavalry dragon and has fairly min-maxed low speed stats. Quite a unique unit. Muspell's Flamelick breath gets some serious upgrades. The original effects are still active, including +3 flat attack, +5 stats in combat, and Fatal Smoke's 3's anti-healing plus deep wounds after. For new base effects, Muspell gets Near Trace 4 Conto, 15 flat DR, and 50% DR piercing. If he initiates, Muspell then deals 7 instant damage as combat begins. After combat, he will deploy Divine Vein Flame, 5 tiles wide, with 2 rows. So far, Flamelick Breath adds Conto and flat DR for defensive perks, then goes offensive with DR piercing, 7 instant damage, and 2 rows of Flare Flame tiles. For the refined part, outside of either phase, Muspell grants +6 attack and defense, fringe bonus, and treachery to allies within 2 spaces. After start of turn skills trigger, Muspell also gives +3 to any field buffs on allies nearby. For himself, Muspell will get +10 stats in combat and deal 20 true damage per hit. We've gotten 4 ults and he wants CYL, so everyone should be familiar with Igniner's +3 field buff and gimmick. Muspell has copied that effect, added fringe bonus to double up, and added treachery, true damage, which scales off total field buffs. Treachery will get countered by LOL, but that's a lot of true damage potential if left unchecked. Before we move on, Muspell has a unique C skill called Domain of Flame. If he's within 2 spaces of an ally, then Muspell and those allies gain +4 attack and defense. They also gain true damage equal to 30% of their attack minus the foe's res stat for the first attack. As long as you have higher attack than the foe's res, this is just free damage. Domain of Flame will benefit from the Refine's new +9 attack and defense field balls that get doubled with fringe bonus. However, Muspell and allies must be close together, so if you initiate with your 3-move unit, then it may not happen. The obvious C-skill alternatives for Muspell would be something like a modern speed and res honed cavalry buff. Unfortunately, we have not gotten any with this stat combo. I'm not sure we ever will, so you may have to depend on teams for speed and res buffing. If you don't mind, you can overlap with the current attack and speed or attack and res options. Hone Insight, Hone Assault, Outcry Dull, or Bellow. Usually I would ignore speed, but Muspell gets plus 15 from his weapon, and he has field buffing plus fringe bonus stat stacking. Toss in Frozen, and you never know what could happen. Now since he has 50% piercing, I would try to get Bellow for bread type cooldown or Outcry Dull to neutralize enemy buffs since Muspell's all about stat advantages. A good pairing for this type of high defense and res unit is Dragon Scales. Muspell will get a lot of debuffs, a free follow-up, -1 cooldown before getting hit, and then another 50% piercing for a total of 75% with his weapon. You can tack on Accelerator Clash and A-Slot for a decent mixed phase build. If you have extra cooldown, then Muspell will be able to trigger Dragon Flame or Dragon Ice for good damage, healing, and gain access to 40% DR. Dragon's Roar is also a 3 cooldown option. For other cooldown methods, Momentum will give a follow-up attack as well. Conjuring Breath also works, but Muspell does already have the anti-healing part. For other skills, getting 30 flat speed for Patience is doable, but requires a lot of speed investment, so be warned. Muspell has access to Scout skills, including even res Wave D to add another field buff to his kit. Barricade can also work for close-knit formations. Now I don't have them listed, but Muspell could run more support things like Rally, Bruise, Favor, or Detect. To go with all these stat buffing, maybe Instruct 4 could work. Muspell probably won't be teaching anyone about speed though. Overall, Muspell gets Igniteer's gimmick, which is fun, although we did just get an entire banner of low effects. For his Fatal Smoke and Flame tie effects, you won't need to attack, so Muspell needs to survive combat. Maybe an intended contrast to Nifl's Refine, which can cause trouble all on its own without fighting. If Muspell's flames are too hot, you can put in a call for the Fireman, assuming you got some gold. Our lethality assassin Volke is a red dagger infantry with good attack and speed. Hopefully you paid the man if you've been playing Path of Radiance. Fireman's hook actually didn't get that many changes, although its conditions are now gone. Volke will have its sling, plus 5 stats in combat, no guard, and bread type cooldown. The only new effect is how Volke disables Save Your Skills. Naturally, the assassin is not going to be disturbed while going for the kill. As for the Refined, for foes within 3 rows or columns, they get hit with -5 stats, 10 true damage, and the foe cannot counterattack back. Volke himself will get another +5 stats with 20 true damage. This is actually a pretty straightforward Refine, but Volke gets 2 very impactful effects. Undefended, or Disabling Saver, means the guy does not need to worry about assassinating squishy foes as long as he can reach them. If Volke can't do the job himself, then he provides long-range flash to disable counterattacks. If the enemy doesn't have Nullsea Disrupt, then Volke's squad will just get free reign to attack safely. Besides these perks, Volke gets +15 stat advantages if you include the debuffs, and then 30 true damage for himself. You also have the cooldown trio of Sling, bread type cooldown, and no guard. In terms of game plan, Volke originally used Time's Pulse to get Sling lethality to 2 cooldown. His first attack charged with special, the second attack would proc it. He did come with 30 impact to tank a hit, but now Volke is kind of just going to ignore counterattacks. You can replace the no follow-up B skill with perfect attack and speed, or the better attack and speed Waylay, which is for daggers only. There are many ways to get -1 cooldown, such as from Vyland's pre and pulse support, but Volke can also use the Times Plus Sacred Seal or the Echo version. Now obviously, Volke's main issue is running into Nullsea Disrupt units. They will fight back, and while he gets some stats, Volke's Refine doesn't even give flat DR. To get around this, Volke could use Desperation, which can come from Active Lookout. Lookout skills are really good because Volke gets Conta 2 to get out after attacking, plus you can use Distant Swap. While Active Lookout typically is great, if the foe doesn't counter, then Lookout Force is better since it neutralizes attack and speed debuffs. The entire idea of this Refine is that if one of the enemies is a bad target for Volke, such as a Nullsea Disrupt tank, then the guy can just go assassinate some other squish unit since the enemy can't use Savior. If possible, try to get Volke some mobility, whether it's warping, plus movement, or just assisting him closer to the enemy. Let's talk about specials because while lethality can do big damage, it relies on the foe having high defense. Skills like Speed and Defense low finish or full disarm lower defense, so lethality may not do as well. For this reason, you could run Comet. It's 5 cooldown, but Comet gives itself -1 cooldown every single turn. Volke can still proc it in 2 shots. It can also work against enemy defensive tempo if Volke just waits out long enough. Now since Comet scales with base damage, it works great with attack buffs and defense debuffs. It also gives 40% DR, but ideally Volke doesn't need it. Same for Arch Rival, but having some defensive measures isn't a bad idea. You can use those with pair up for like %DR plus flat DR. For other skill options, Volke can use Slice with Sparrow, Slight Echo, Odds Wave 4, or the No Follow-Up Seal to bypass Follow-Up Denial. Foe or Potent Disarm can be used to deal with traps. Speed Taker still didn't get its side grade or upgrade. If it's something other than No Guard, I would consider that too. For Fallen Assassinations, Volke can bring Fatal Smoke 4. To cause trouble, you can tack on Savage Blow or Poison Strike for chip damage. If the foe doesn't fight back, Volke could also charge up AoE specials to unleash later. Maybe you could use it with Favor Beast Skills, which could add cooldown and more true damage support to go with Fireman's Hook. Comet plus Favor could also be a really fun combo. Overall, Volke's Refine is more about target selection for himself and the team. Duo Veil bringing back Fell Spirits and Elsie Disrupt isn't really great, but Volke at the very least gets the fight undisturbed by Savior. Someone at Intelligent Systems must really like Salem because the dude gets one of the most unique refines so far. As a unit, Salem's a classic red Grand Hero battle mage with high attack and res. He did not have a funny gimmicky unique tome on release, but he's got one now. Dark Fate is a 14-might weapon. At start of turn and after acting, Salem inflicts -7 attack and res, discord, and panic onto the closest foe and enemies within 2 spaces. Salem will get +5 stats in combat, deal 20 true damage, and get 7 flat damage reduction. For the actual refined part, Salem gets another +5 stats every follow-up and inflicts guard on the foe. So far, not really crazy, and as a combative unit, Salem is nothing special. However, dude gets a unique Sleep Style. Technically, Sleep Style is another version of Legendary Elise's Freeze Style. It has a 5-space range within 3 rows or columns where Salem can attack an enemy. He will deal 0 damage, but so will the enemy, and Savior cannot be triggered. After combat, Salem will inflict the turn-ending status, or if it's summoner deals, he'll just straight up end the other guy's turn immediately. Sleep Style will have a 2-turn cooldown. Now, a Heroic Grail unit being the second unit with a brand new mechanic is kinda wild. Salem has a lot more restrictions than Elise, like less range, no extra action, and a 2-turn cooldown. However, Sleep Style is just a sleep staff, allowing Salem to deny an enemy from moving unless they have firm Kanto Curve. He will need some help to get in range, but if you can't escape, then this can be a very annoying mechanic. Besides ending a turn, Sleep Style also lets Salem charge cooldown or apply debuffs safely. For example, you can use Sleep Style to apply Fatal, Pulse, or Panic Smoke 4 since that one gives full Penalty Delver. You can also use Defense and Res Smoke to get Pathfinder onto Salem. That way allies can actually follow up to attack in the same turn. There is also good old Savage Blow / Poison Strike. Now, since he doesn't have an extra action like Elise, Salem can use Emblem Micaiah to assist, refresh, then use Sleep Style. This will let him reposition first, which is great because you cannot move when using Sleep Style. In general, try to get Salem some kind of mobility like Team Warping to improve his options. As for support skills, Salem can use Favor. Salem isn't the highest res mage ever, but you can also try to stack flat res and use the usual res comparing debuffs. Havoc's really good because A, Sabotage works with Panic, and B, it gives Kanto 1. You can also use Speed and Defense for Havoc if you have an extra Ignots. This setup can also use Pulse Up Ploy for cooldown, exposure, and Ploy itself. Eventually, Salem will charge a higher cooldown Ice Wall, Frost Moon, or just Glacies. We're not expecting too much from Salem in a fight, so an instant special would be nice to have for backup. Speaking of specials, part of using Sleep Style is getting free cooldown charges. Salem could use Rearm Lysithia's kit of Logic, Conjuring Breath, and Creation Pulse. If the foe has the Discord and Panic statuses from Dark Fate, then Logic would go to 2 cooldown on the first hit. With his actual attack, Salem would charge the 5 cooldown special. Since Sleep Style has a cooldown itself, Salem can drop Logic in between turns. With all this being said, major warning with this setup, if Salem doubles, he might proc Logic during the Sleep Style combat, and it's going to deal 0 damage if that happens. Since this is possible, you might actually want to drop either Conjuring Breath or Creation Pulse. Instead, you could use Pulse Up to get cooldown on the next turn, or just use Comet for the same reason. One skill I would try to get is Tempo. Guaranteed cooldown charging would just make things more consistent. For some other skills, in the A slot you can use Flash Spell for cooldown or RA/Finish for extra damage. Low Finish in the B slot can be great if you have a special charged. Tempo Echo would free up a slot, or Sam can use Mercy Wing Echo to fly in, maybe assist with Micaiah's ring, then do his thing. Overall, Sleep Style is the most interesting part of Salem's Refine, and trying to empower it with more support perks would generally be the way to go. If you want to bully someone, you technically could use 2 Salems to just perma-sleep them. Honestly, Salem might be a fun unit if you're also using Sather or Formortus with their recent upgrades. That'll be it for part 1 of the update 10.2 refines. Let me know your thoughts and have fun with the new weapons. In part 2, we're going to cover Tiny Tana plus the remixes for Nethuse plus Legendary Yuri. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.